Let's talk about the 6 basic camera moves. 3 of them, the camera is not physically relocated. The tilt, the pan, and the zoom are all done with the camera staying in the same spot. The truck, the dolly, and the pedestal involve actually moving the camera to a different location and taking the audience along with you. So let's take a quick look at these. I'll show you how each one is done and what the effect looks like using some of my household friends here. I'm also going to use the sort of thing you would find lying around the house. Probably you don't have a track dolly system tucked away in your closet, but I bet you've got a chair with wheels on it. So I will try my best to do each of these movements using what I have at hand, which is probably similar to what you'll be able to find around your place. The pan means you're simply going to rotate the camera to the left or the right. Same thing as turning your head on your neck if you wanted to look to the left or look to the right. The tilt involves, well, tilting the camera up or down. The zoom involves manipulating the camera's lens to change the field of view. Right? You all know what a zoom is. It looks as if the camera is getting closer to the subject or getting farther away from the subject, but what's actually happening is that the field of view is getting narrower or getting wider. A pedestal shot, sometimes also referred to as a crane shot or a jib shot, is moving the camera up or down. This is different from a tilt. With a tilt, you're tilting the camera up or down, but the camera's staying in the same spot. With a pedestal shot, you are physically making the camera taller or physically making the camera shorter, and again, taking the audience along with you. It's very difficult to do a smooth pedestal with a cheap tripod, but that's what you see me trying to do here. We do have a lovely jib, so when classes resume face-to-face, if you want to play with that, we can make that happen. And I would love if it got some more use. It sits in the corner and gathers cobwebs most of the time. The dolly involves moving the camera closer to the talent or pulling it farther away from the talent. You're physically changing the distance between the camera and the subject. This is different from a zoom in which the camera stays stationary and the work is done by the lens. With a dolly, the work is done by physically moving things forward or backwards. Again, normally this would be done with a little bit higher technology, maybe some tracks laid down on the ground and a very expensive custom buggy that rolls on those tracks. But you can see here I'm attempting to do it with a rolling chair. Trucking, or the truck shot, involves physically moving the camera to the left or the right. As with a dolly, normally you would do this with a much more advanced setup. You would have rails on the floor, you would have a dolly or a buggy of some sort sitting on those rails, and it would glide effortlessly from side to side, very smooth and very slick. But you can see I'm doing a decent job of it with my same rolling chair. Those are the 6 basic camera movements: pan, tilt, zoom, truck, dolly, pedestal. There are, of course, more movements, and some of them are fairly complicated. You can also use these in combination. You would normally expect with a zoom that there would also be some panning and tilting going on. You're trying to keep some part of the image in frame as you're changing your field of view. If you combine a truck and a dolly, so you're moving the camera sort of in a semicircle, it's called an arc. If you combine a dolly and a zoom, it's called a dolly zoom. It doesn't actually have a real name, but it's a really powerful effect in that it changes the perspective of the background without changing the elements in the foreground. You can see a couple of elements, or a couple of examples of this going on to the side here. So this terminology is something you really need to understand and internalize and know which one is which. Not only are you going to see it on a quiz in a very near future, but this is the way that we communicate with each other when we're planning shoots and planning camera movements. And it's the way you should communicate with each other when you're working on your own projects, right? If I had a nickel for every time I had a producer say to me, we're going to pan in on this person. You don't pan in on a person. You can roll your eyes and feel smug because you know what you actually do is zoom in or possibly dolly in on that person. So anyway, those are the 6 basic camera movements. Let's take a little time to familiarize ourselves with them, practice with them, and we will move on to even more fun stuff.